Folks, I have, again, my name is Terry Stiletovich. I'm the attorney with the Access program. As Jonathan said, is one program among many, being a part of PSI. And as Jonathan stated, Rachel Warner, many years ago, initiated the Access program. And as you can see on the slide, and I think advocating for chronic conditions, entitlements, and social services. Um, Social Security disability and supplemental security income, SSI. Many people often confuse the two, but they are two separate programs. And essentially, Social Security disability provides, as probably you all well know, provides monthly income to people that have worked and reach a point where they are disabled and are no longer able to work. And it's provided for by your payroll taxes, your FICA taxes that you pay uh, throughout your working life. You also will become subject or eligible rather for Medicare. Um, SSI is for adults who have not worked enough or worked very little and do not have what's called insured status for disability. And it's also for children, um, um, minors under the age of 18 from low income families. SSI is a means test to be eligible for, whereas with Social Security disability, it's only the for the most part whether you have insured status and you meet the medical rules. Going to the next slide, Jonathan. Social Security disability, again, is for people who have worked recently and generally within the last 5 years and have paid the Social Security taxes out of their earnings. The property you own, other family income, you can have $1 million in the bank and you're still eligible if you have insured status for disability. Um, um, it doesn't affect the amount you will receive. That's based on your earnings and how long you've worked. Um, so it's essentially, you think of disability, it's an insurance program that we start paying into, with that first job at age 15 or 16. The next slide, um, with disability, and this does not apply to SSI, and I'll read our slide statement, has a 5-month waiting period from the date you became disabled until the date you are entitled to your first monthly payment. And you can get back benefits for a year past from the date that you apply for disability. And then down the road, usually 24 months from when you start receiving your monetary benefit, you become Medicare eligible. With disability, with Social Security disability, there's 3 big dates. There's your onset date, the date you became disabled. That's usually your last day of work or thereabouts, prior or just prior to your last day of work. From that date, a person doesn't become eligible to start receiving the monetary benefit for 5 months. After that 5 months and you start receiving your benefits, 24 months from that date, you become Medicare eligible. So essentially 29 months from your onset date, you become Medicare eligible. As opposed to, we can go to the next slide, SSI, there again, SSI is for people who are too young to work or have not paid Social Security taxes in the last few years. And it, again, it's financially means tested. It's for low income families, children of low income families, and for people uh, that have minimal assets. With SSI, you can own your own home, you can own a motor vehicle, and that doesn't count against you. Um, um, and then for an individual, you can have another $2,000 in assets. For a married couple, you can have an additional $3,000 in assets. If a family is seeking benefits for a child, it, it gets away from that and varies on the number of children overall in the home, and the income can go up depending on how many children are in the home. So there's different things that come into play for a family seeking benefits for a child. Going back to Social Security, um, to have insured status, essentially, in, with Social Security, as you know, there's retirement, there's disability, and there's SSI, the three programs. With retirement, to qualify on your own, for an individual to qualify on their own, they just need to have worked 10 years or 40 quarters throughout the course of their life. So if somebody works from age 25 to 35 and then never works again, they're still going to qualify for a benefit on their own when they reach retirement age. With Social Security disability, you essentially have to have worked 5 of the last 10 years at the point you apply for disability. So you have insured and let's say it in another way, you have insured status for 5 years after you stopped working. Many people, and I've represented many, for some reason do not file for years, and often they've missed their window for disability, and they may have too many assets to qualify for SSI. And for example, if you stopped working in 2010 and your insured status for disability will run out at the end of 2015. If you apply for disability in 2020 or 2021, to qualify for your disability benefit, you will have to be able to prove that you became disabled prior to the end of 2015. 5 years before, and that's often very difficult. And it's unfortunate that many people that stopped working do become disabled years down the line, and they're not able to receive those benefits. With supplemental security income, SSI, again, it's a matter of your financial status, and with SSI, there's no 5-month waiting period, but you can only get back benefits to say a month after you apply for the benefits. With both programs, and going to well, I kind of veer off what the slides are on, so I apologize for that. We can go to the next slide, Jonathan. With both Social Security disability and SSI, with disability, you can, if you're able, still work a little bit. It's essentially part-time work. Social Security has and I'm getting away from my slide presentation, but Social Security has what's called, their term, substantial gainful activity. And being on disability, you can still work and earn up to, as of this year, a little over $1,200. However, in reality, your case is being reviewed on a yearly basis, and the powers that be at the administration, if they review that and see how much money you're making, it's likely you will be reviewed to determine whether you remain disabled if you're making close to that threshold. But staying with this slide, um, and you can work on SSI as well. Um, However, uh, for every dollar, see, for every $2 you earn, they will reduce your SSI benefit by $1. They take many things into account, determining what your SSI amount is. That can, and if you're a minor, that can be the room and housing that your family provides. Plus, SSI has a cap. Uh, uh, Disability is based on your income and how much you paid into the system. SSI has a maximum amount you can receive. Right now, that's under $800 a month. And but you can work, and if they reduce your SSI amount, as long as you qualify for at least $1 a month in SSI benefits, you will be eligible for Medicaid. In a few states.
Terry, sorry, we do have a couple questions that have popped up.
Good.
Jonathan Payne wants to know, his son is under 18 years old. He has hemophilia A and is that a bond disorder? How can we get him SSI consideration or
Sorry
something?
about that. That's a bone disorder. Thank you.
Oh, okay, a bone disorder. Thank you. I didn't think that looked right, but okay. So how can they get him SSI consideration or something to that effect?
Again, you can, again, it comes down to your household income and assets. Um, and you need generally give me a call and I can ask you more personal questions about your income and assets, and just getting a ballpark figure, I can tell you whether you'll be eligible, whether your son will be eligible based on that. But you can file a claim at any time. And these days, it's with everything nearly being done online, it's pretty simple to initiate a claim online. Although you can still do it by the telephone, although, and traditionally you can go to your Social Security office and do it in person. However, currently, there's great restrictions on who's allowed into Social Security offices and various other government offices. But depending
Great
on
question.
the severity of his factor VIII deficiency, his hemophilia A, and his bone condition, you'll have to meet certain criteria, and those are farther along in the slideshow.
Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. Great. Thank you, Terry.
Excellent.
Another question we have here. This is from Martin. He's asking, at what age do the reviews stop, if they stop?
That's a good question because I'm not sure. However, I advise people, and I'm pretty confident of this. Once, I believe under the Social Security law, they can review you all the way up to retirement age. However, I generally advise people that if you secure disability benefits in your 50s, you're probably good to go. That but they still can review you in your 50s, but generally you're good to go. Prior to the age of 50, um, they will review you. And traditionally, and over the years, especially over the last decade, they keep uh, uh, they keep adjusting the law and the regulations to actually make it harder to be reviewed. Traditionally, they would review you every 3 years, maybe 4 years. And in some areas, it may go much longer than that. In different parts of the country, they may be very proficient and they are reviewing you every 3 years. Just recently, within the last year, they're, 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 they changed the reg and they want people to be reviewed every year. I don't believe the DDSs, the Disability Determination Services, and the SSA will have the resources to review everybody every year, but that is going to be the rule, or is the rule now and going forward.
Great. Another question comes in here from Lisa. I'm going to read the whole thing, but just because it helps to paint the picture. She asked, why has Social Security stopped allowing us to report wages on the app during this pandemic? Apparently, they can only send in their wages by fax during this time. She states that her daughter is on. Oh,
I lost you.
I'm terribly sorry. She states that her daughter is on Social Security. Can they report online?
That I do not know. That is just a quirk of however they're dealing with the pandemic at this time. Why you can't do it online and that you're required to do it by fax. I don't know why they've made that the rule.
Okay, sorry, we've got a couple more questions. People have lots of questions for you, Terry. All right. Hi, someone 19. I reapplied for SSI. Would me working in the meantime hurt my pending case?
Yes. And going back to that review question, minors on SSI, nearly everyone gets reviewed at age 18, between 18 and 21. And the rules used to change from being a minor to an adult. And nearly everybody that is reviewed is generally, their benefits are ceased. If you've reapplied and you're working, you're going to be denied. They're not even going to look at your medical issues if they see that you're working. You're seeking at 19. You're seeking either your SSI, which you're saying I'm disabled. I cannot work full time, and by working, your case will be shut down based on that reason alone. Your case will be denied, and it's unfortunate. Now, if you're working just part-time and it's pretty nominal part-time work, you can go forward, but also at age 19, it will be very difficult to prevail.
Okay, thank you. Nancy asks, I've been on Social Security disability since I was 45. And, oh, sorry, I'm 61. When does it just become Social Security?
It will essentially with disability, it will just become Social Security probably at age 65, if that's your max retire. Then I believe that would be your max retirement age. However, the disability benefit with retirement, as you already know, you can take your retirement early at age 62. and you would get quite a bit less per month than if you waited to your max retirement age, say at 65. With disability, regardless of the age you receive it, you're getting an amount much closer to your max retirement amount. So you're getting more in disability than you would receive under your retirement benefit at 62, and almost close to that amount at 65. So it just kind of it just kind of becomes your Social Security benefit, I believe, at your max retirement age. But it would be that same amount, and then the adjusted, however it's adjusted each year, going forward based on what you're receiving now.
Okay, great. So we have another question here. It says, if you were denied, can you keep appealing? My son was denied, was working, had to stop, had knee replacement, ankle fused, and has had an elbow surgery.
Could you repeat that, Aaron?
Sure. It says, if you were denied, can you keep appealing? My son was denied, was working, had to stop, had knee replacement, ankle fused, and has had to have elbow surgery.
Okay, yes, you can. There's essentially 3 stages at the administrative level for a disability claim. There's your initial claim that you file. That is processed, and generally in 3 to 5 months, you will get a decision. If you are denied at that level, and again, if you're working and working full time while the claim process is ongoing, they don't even look at medical issues. If they see that you're working, they will deny the claim and won't even consider medical issues. But if you're denied at the initial claim level, you file a first appeal. It's called a request for reconsideration. And that stays with the Disability Determination Service, the DDS, as it's called. And that will take another couple of months, maybe even shorter, where essentially they re-review all of your medical records or everything in your file. Generally, if you're denied at the initial claim, you will be, they will approve, they will re-deny you at that first appeal, the reconsideration claim. If that's denied, you then can appeal a second time and you request a hearing before an administrative law judge. And that is where most people finally get relief in being granted the benefits. The administrative law judges are, you've heard me speak of the DDS. Each state has an agency, and it's a state agency, and their sole mission is to process disability claims for the Social Security Administration. At that second appeal, third level, where you request a hearing before an administrative law judge, you're getting away from the DDS, and the ALJs, as they're called. An ALJ hearing he's a federal administrative law judge employed by the Social Security Administration, and they're separate from the DDS, and they make a completely new and independent decision based on the evidence in the file and on the hearing. So yeah, you can keep appealing, but again, the process can take a long time, from an initial claim to a hearing before an administrative law judge. These days, they've improved a good bit, but I still tell people to be conservative, it can still be a 2-year process. It can be a 15-month or 2-year process. And but again, if now that he has had multiple surgeries and is not working, depending on when he got denied, when you get a denial, you have 60 days, a 60-day window to appeal. If you miss that window, then you will have to start all over. And the kind of an unwritten rule, the system is drawn out, and it's almost set up for people to kind of give up. But that's why you have to be diligent and stay, appeal a denial. And later on in the slide presentation, I can show you the numbers of how the system works.
I think you may have answered this question previously, but I'll just reiterate here. Jesus comes in here and he's asking, if you don't appeal, can you reapply afterwards? And I believe that you answer that. The
Yes,
answer is yes, but you have to start
yes,
over.
you can always file a new claim. However, you may not be able to go back beyond the date of the last denial. If your claim is denied in December and you do not appeal, and you file again a few months later or a year or two later, you cannot go back seeking back benefits past the date of the denial.
Great.
Thank you, Barry.
Sure. Oh, should we go forward with the slideshow?
Yeah,
Let's go ahead.
Just touching on this last slide again, as long as you're eligible for $1 a month in monthly SSI benefits, you'll be automatically entitled to Medicaid, except in a few states where you have to apply separately for Medicaid, and their financial guidelines may be stricter than those of the federal SSI regulations. Those states are Alaska, Idaho, Kansas, Nebraska, Nevada, Oregon, and Utah. Going to the next slide, we've been talking about the non-medical rules for Social Security, disability, and SSI. Now we'll talk about the medical rules. And Social Security defines disability as the inability to do any substantial, this is a Social Security term of art, substantial gainful activity, which means working full time and making over that threshold of $1,200 a month, by reason of any medically determinable physical or mental impairment, which can be expected to result in death or last or have been ongoing for 12 months. The determination of disability, and we can go to the next slide, Jonathan. And it's kind of a 5-step process that they ask, although the DDS, when they make their determinations, it seems to me from my experience that they primarily concentrate on the listing of impairments. But there is, as you can see on the slide, is the person engaged in substantial gainful activity or working? No. Does the person have a severe medical impairment? If that's a yes, you go to the next step. Does the severity of the impairment meet or equal a listing, which I'll address shortly? And then if you meet or equal a listing, it's over right there, and you will be found to be disabled. If you do not meet or equal a listing, you go to these final two steps, and residual functional capacity to perform any past relevant work. That's if you have the physical ability, physical or mental ability. And if you're not able to do past work, depending on your age and education, work experience, is there other work available? And that's the sequential process, how they determine disability. Going to the next slide, as I mentioned this, if you have gross monthly earnings, and this is our 2018, but as of 2020, if you're making $1,260 or more a month, and that's gross earnings, you are engaged in SGA, and they won't consider a disability claim, regardless of your situation. If you're actually physically working in some capacity and earning more than that, you're engaged in SGA. And almost any and again, a severe impairment, anything that affects your ability to work in some way will be considered a severe impairment. Going to the next slide. The listing of impairments I'll read it. The listing of impairments give examples of various medical conditions by body system: neurological, orthopedic, mental, and it's just, think of a giant phone book listing anything and the criteria for that condition to be disabling. And again, it describes what sort of evidence or clinical data is needed to determine that a person is disabled without considering any additional factors. An impairment not listed or a combination of impairments may medically equal a listing. And that's where you don't meet the listing per absolute data or medical testing, but combined within the evidence, you can equal the listing. There are separate listings for the same. Traditionally, there were the listing for children with hemophilia was different for once you turned 18 and you became an adult. There were different criteria for being found disabled. However, that's changed. Finishing up this slide, if an adult does not meet or equal a listing, you then must proceed to the 4th and 5th steps of the evaluation, sequential evaluation. A child must meet medically equal or functionally equal the listing to be found disabled. The sequential evaluation doesn't apply to minors for the most part. There's different factors that come into play with children that go to a hearing, but I can address that later. The listing for hemophilia and our program, we actually, and we weren't as successful as we hoped to be, but it was changed probably 8 to 10 years ago, and we actually testified at congressional hearings about this listing. But I'll read the listing to you, and there's a few listings that apply to bleeding disorders, but 7.08 is essentially the listing for hemophilia A and B. And as it states, including hemophilia and thrombocytopenia with complications requiring, and this is requiring at least 3 hospitalizations within a 12-month period, occurring at least 30 days apart, prior to the adjudication of the case or the decision being made, which is causes a lot of problems for many of my clients in the community to meet that listing requiring those at least 48-hour hospitalizations. As it states here, time considered part of that 48 hours can include an ER room or being at the HTC before being admitted into a hospital setting. Again, it used to be different, but the listing for minors, people under the age 18, now is the equivalent of the adult listing. However, I've had success with other factors in getting a disability determination for minors outside of the listing. Another listing for hemophilia 7.18, repeated complications, and this goes in more so can tie in getting outside for the children. Repeated complications of hematological disorders, including different complications, but essentially, and they list those here, pain, severe fatigue, malaise. For some reason, they put that in the hemophilia listing, but the key ones are if because of your condition, you have a limitation in activities of daily living, in social functioning, and in completing tasks, which they equate to, work tasks in a timely manner, being able to keep pace in a job setting. Due to deficiencies in concentration, persistence, or pace. That's more mental, but physical limiting and being able to keep pace will also be considered by an administrative law judge. The next slide.
Gary, we got a few other quick questions here for you.
Sure.
As they ask, is the same criteria for severe von Willebrand's disease?
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
Okay, all right, excellent. And then I've got another question here. It says, if I applied for SSD and are paying child support, would that affect the amount paid, or would an additional amount go to the child?
If a parent with minor children is approved for Social Security disability, and just for example's sake, if again it's minor children under the age of 18, for example's sake, if you're approved for disability and your benefit is $1,000 a month, then and this would be the total amount for however many minor children, you would receive, in addition to and on top of that $1,000, 50% of that amount, or $500 specifically for your minor children. So if you have one child, and I'm fairly confident of this, I might have to research it, but if you have one child, that child will get an additional $500. If you have 3 children, the 500 would go and be effectively split evenly among the 3 children. Would you be required to pay additional child support? That would that would be up to your local court order, your local divorce decree, and that would be a local legal decision made by a local court, family law court.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Terry.
Sure, sure. Um, a final listing has to do with joint damage, listing 1.02, major dysfunction of joints. I've represented many men in the community where we've been able to apply that listing regarding the destruction of a joint, be it hip, knee, ankle, elbow, um, um, and other joints as well. Uh, um, but that is the final listing that generally applies to the bleeding disorder community. Okay, these are the numbers I was talking about, and they are tough numbers. Um, um, Essentially, at this time, and it's been this way for a while, only about 4 of 10 um, applicants, people that file for disability, are ultimately approved. And generally, and we broke it down here, at the initial application, 100%, maybe only at the time in 2019, 2018, and that still is the case today, only 22%, so well over 75% at the initial claim level of people that file for disability are denied. Then at that first appeal, the request for reconsideration, again, maybe roughly only 2% of people get approved at that level. Then when you take it to the third step, which is what I tell everyone, unless, you just have to stay diligent and keep appealing. But at that third stage, with the hearing before the administrative law judge, an additional 12% from the 100% at the beginning are approved. Right now, across the country, the national average at the administrative law judge level, the judges approve about 44% of people that appear before them. So they're still denying a majority of the people that take it to that third level, take it to that third administrative level. But I still don't, I don't want to discourage people from filing if they feel they are disabled, because it's, from my experience, I can have a case and take it to 3 judges, and 2 will approve it every time, and a third one will deny it every time. So there is, even though there's set regulation and law across the country, subjectivity does come into play. But again, the overall just 36% of people from the beginning of the process are ultimately approved as of last year. And on that slide, and it does say, and through last year, we've had at Access, we've had a 70% approval rate for our clients' claims. I work with, and again, this program, this law program, this legal aid office was started by a hemophilia family, as Jonathan stated. And that was our first group. We currently provide assistance to 3 or 4 other chronic medical condition states. How we can help, again, and you'll see we have a couple of different numbers that are, but we can provide direct representation to members of the bleeding disorder community at no cost to them. We also have our legal support hotline where people can call about insurance questions, Medicaid, Medicare questions, and we will do our best to provide either a referral to a local agency that can answer those questions or answer the questions themselves. And again, all our services are provided at no cost to the client and are completely confidential. It's an attorney-client relationship, and we waive all fees, all attorney fees and fees of any kind. Essentially, that's a picture. We're just a three-person staff right now, and we're here for you.
Well, thank you, Terry,
Excellent.
so much. That's such a great overview, and I know it's such a meaningful topic to most everyone. I know your last slide here on the screen has got the 888 number, and of course the support hotline as well. I just want to say I could not speak more highly of the work that you guys have done. It's just been incredible. I know you've helped a lot of patients that we've served over the years, and we just really sincerely appreciate all that you guys do. So if you're listening to this conversation today and you just really appreciate Terry's input and would like some help on your individual situation, please reach out, because you really, like the old saying most of us grew up with, you have not because you ask not. So sometimes you got to just pick up the phone and make the call and ask the right question in order to be able to get the results you need. So Terry, thank you so much for being here today and for helping us with understanding a little bit more about how to navigate these issues.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure, Jonathan. It was great to meet you earlier this or last month as well.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.